Hello and welcome to Revolutionise Your Love Life. Do you want to know more about love relationships, what makes them work, how to create the one of your best dreams? Do you want to be in a really healthy, juicy love relationship? In these podcasts, we will give ideas and practical advice to light your way. Whether you're looking for a love partner, already in a relationship you wish could be better, or leaving one that has run its course, there will be something to inspire, empower and support you. Revolutionise Your Love Life is a fortnightly podcast where you will access the knowledge and wisdom of love experts and relationship coaches from across the world to help you find true fulfillment in love. I am your host, Heather Garbett. Welcome. Hello everybody. I'm here today for my third podcast with the wonderful Daniel Ryan. He is the voice of that family guy, a candid and compassionate advocate for parents navigating the storm of separation, custody battles, and domestic abuse conflict. He provides unfiltered expertise with real-world impact. He brings many years of frontline experience supporting families through divorce, custody, and domestic conflict without hiding behind legal jargon. His no-nonsense, story-driven approach helps us truly understand the human cost of family breakdown and what they can do to navigate it more wisely. And we're here today to talk about the impact of family court on children. Welcome, Daniel.
And hello, Heather. Nice to see you again. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. So can you tell me first off, what are the effects you've seen on children in the family divorce courts?
The effects are horrible. As a sweeping opening statement, children can, because it goes one of two ways in family court. Children either get to know everything, and that's horrendous because they can obviously become incredibly distressed by the fact that their parents are battling and saying some of the most horrendous things about each other. So they're tainted by that. Or the alternative, the other side of that coin, is that children get to learn nothing, and they're entirely kept in the dark for what can be months and months, and so they have no idea when they're going to see one parent or the other, and they just don't know what's going on, and that's incredibly unsettling for them. So the impact on children is horrible.
Yeah, and I see the effects of really painful divorces in the adults that I've worked with as a psychotherapist and a coach. And of course, I do conscious uncoupling to try and help people not to do that to their kids, really protect them emotionally. But I think you're looking at the worst angles, really, where battles get to be quite nasty. Children get caught in the middle.
True. They lose sight. Unfortunately, as the battle heats up, people lose sight of their children, and they're either sort of pushed off to one side and totally ignored, or perhaps more sadly, they become pawns in the game, and they're traded between the parents, which is, incredibly, incredibly sad, really sad.
Yes, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because, from the trauma point of view, children are unformed. And I see how relationships later in life get affected by the beliefs that get developed through experiences and observing of their family. So if they think relationships means battle or uncertainty or high anxiety, unkindness, brutality, then that's what they'll expect as, in inverted commas, love as they grow up. So this really is important. The other thing that's really key is how long this all takes. It might be 3 years in an adult's life. It's only 1/10 of your life if you're 30. But if you're a child of 6, that's a huge chunk of your life. It's half your life.
It is, yeah, it is. And that's a very poignant comment, because so many children that I'm involved with and have been involved with over the years, you're right, it's half their life or more in some instances, that they've been in an environment where the normal life just doesn't exist. It's broken. They're in this embittered setting where mum's saying things about dad and dad's saying things about mum, and they might not be seeing one parent at all. And they do. Children learn, I mean, and you know this better than I, but children learn from the two most influential people in their lives, and that's their parents. And so, what parents do is the model by which they take into adulthood.
Mm. Mm. And let's just look in more detail how the court proceedings affect the child's relationship with their parents.
It is the court proceeding, obviously, the parents. Well, the first issue we've got in terms of family court is that family court is regarded as private law. So what that means is, it is essentially, from a legal perspective, a divorce matter or a child custody matter or a child contact matter, whatever it is regarded as a private dispute between two parties, mum and dad, husband and wife. By virtue of that, there is also great long streams of wordage sitting in court paperwork that says you can't talk about what is going on in court. You can't discuss it with family and friends. And by virtue, you cannot discuss it with your children. And so parents, will go off, drop the children at school and then go off in order to kick each other up in a family court for the day and then come back and pick the children up from school. So it is that not knowing from the children's perspective, which of all the many damages that the family court does to them, I think it's the not knowing what is going on, and more importantly, perhaps not knowing when it's going to end, that is the most damaging. For children who are particularly sort of pre-teen, they struggle. They really do struggle with when will this end? When does normality come back? And unfortunately, for some children, who have been in relationships that are abusive, normality is the abuse. From the moment they're born and from the moment they go through their early toddler years, etc., abuse is the normality. And so it's internalized. That behavior is internalized.
Yeah, you must see quite a lot of this because of the approach you take to work, really supporting people, particularly, I think, more women than men, but men too, who are being abused by their partners, soon to be ex-partners.
Very much so, yes. Yeah, we spend a large proportion of our time, my team and I, working with the emotional spillage of breakdowns in relationships. The legality of it, dealing with the legal aspect, is relatively straightforward. There's a set of procedures and formulae that get applied, and we arrive at a solution. The difficulty is the emotional landscape that we're trying to deal with and trying to cope with, and trying to marshal our clients through that without actually imposing any more distress than we need to. And obviously, when it comes to coming back to the children, obviously the parent that we're dealing with, we're trying to sort of get them to stay relatively emotionally stable through what is a tough time going through court. But everything that they do is reflected on their children.
Yeah, it's really, really hard. The other thing is how children are treated in terms of being fair to the parents, that things are seen as that their access time needs to be considered fair. And the children's wishes don't really seem to hold much weight in that. Can you speak to a bit about that?
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, there is a process. Theoretically, there is a process in family court, because family court has its own dedicated social work department, and they're referred to by the acronym CAFCAS. And CAFCAS is full of social workers, wonderful people, all very dedicated to what they do, and their role is to support the children and endeavour to have the children's voices heard within the courtroom, given that the children are not there themselves. Where that falls down on many, many, many occasions is that the judge, who is ultimately making the decision in these matters, makes a decision that has more to do with appeasing the parents than it does with the best interests of the children. Mum's saying she wants this to happen, Dad's saying he wants that to happen, and Dad wants to take the little lad to the football, and Mum wants to do dance class or whatever it might be. And so that takes precedent in my experience, sadly, um, over the wishes and feelings of the children. Because it's, well, the children aren't here. I need to appease these parents.
So the children just sort of get done too, in a way.
They do. They fit. They're made to fit into a framework, and then lots of the frameworks that that I look at, and I had one as recently as this morning. I've just had the court's judgment on a matter, and the framework entirely disregards, and I'm sure this won't make me popular with the judge in question, but entirely disregards the best interests of the children completely. We have that, and without going too much into the detail of that particular matter, but what we now have is, as of this order, I've now got 2 children who will live out of suitcases for the next 10 years of their childhood, because the court has decided that they're going to spend 2 nights with mum, then they're going to move and going to spend 2 nights with dad, then they're going to move back and spend 1 night with mum, and then they're going to move back and spend 1 night with dad. And they're going to do this because the court wanted to appease the parents. But at no point did anybody stop and say, how would you feel as a child to live out of this suitcase where you have this constant mobility that, well, I'm only here, but there's no point in me getting settled because I'm moving back to the other parent in a day's time or 2 days' time, and half my stuff's here and half my stuff's there. Children require home. Children require home, and I appreciate it's difficult for the parent who is not with the child, the child is not resident with for the bulk of the time. So I appreciate it's difficult for them. I absolutely do. And I represent a lot of those clients who are secondary parents. But you've got to think about what's best for the child. And I'm sorry, but a child batting backwards and forwards with a plastic bag is not what's best for the child.
Well, I'm just finding myself thinking how I would feel at 67 doing that, let alone at 5, 6, and 12 or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's a dreadful, and it's a scenario that the court uses often, that scenario of sort of breaking the week up or breaking the fortnight up, and essentially sharing it out between the parents in order to appease the parents. But as a child, and yeah, and again, just as you reflect, Heather, so I reflect how I would feel about that, and I'm always sort of pushing hard against that in court and saying, no, that's not the way forward. That's not right. That's not right. That is not assisting the child. But that's invariably an order that we get, and the other order that I have a real issue with is in regardless, depending on which faith obviously you sit on. Christmas Day is a sensitive day. Christmas Day is a day that's highly emotional because it's a child's day, and we all want the magic of having our children with us. Because the court struggles to make a fair and equitable decision about Christmas Day ever between 2 parents. What do I do for the best of these 2 parents? So they always end up splitting the day. So you always have this, well, the child will start the day with parent number 1, and then around about lunchtime, 12 o'clockish, 1 o'clockish, they'll then move to parent number 2 and spend the rest of the day with them. For the parents, wonderful. For the child, day destroyed, in my opinion. Because Christmas Day is about, and maybe this is just me, but Christmas Day is about, getting up in your pajamas, pretty much staying in them all day, opening stuff, running around like a complete fool, eating too much, still running around like a complete fool. It's childhood. That's childhood. So I've spoken to too many children over the years who are in that split Christmas relationship, and they all, without exception, say the same thing. I'd just like to spend the whole day in one place.
Bless them. Bless them.
Mm.
So they're packages even then.
They are packages. They are packages. Yeah, I've often referred to children in family court as packages, as possessions that are shared out, assets that are just moved between parents. You know, I've used that analogy time and time and time again, and it's still the case after all these years. It's still the case.
So just to be devil's advocate, what would be your ideal? What would you like to see?
I mean, in terms of contact arrangements, if we start with that, because obviously what I'd like to see is the family court closed and replaced with something fundamentally kinder. But in terms of contact arrangements, I would what I'd quite like actually is for the children to be handed a blank piece of paper and say, draw it. What does it look like? What would you like? Um, and then somebody looks at it from a point of view of practicality that says, well, yes, I appreciate the fact that you want to spend every Wednesday afternoon in the sweet shop, but you can't. So somebody looks at the practicality, but I would just like the court system to return to its original ethos, which is, let's look at what's best for the children. And yes, we've got to apply some practicality to that, because Monday to Friday they have got to go to school, whether they like it or not. And we would like them to have quality time with their parents, each of their parents. But more importantly, how do we do this so that their childhood maintains a magic and an innocence that every childhood should have? How do we do that? So what does that, and if that means that mum and dad have to run around like fools in background to make it happen, so be it. You brought the children into the world. They come with obligation. They come with responsibility. It's down to you to do the work, not them.
To create the security and comfort for them to be able to grow up
Yes.
as trauma-free as possible.
Exactly. You know, if you don't get on as human beings, that's your right. That's your right. But don't deflect that and reflect that on your children. That's not their fault. They didn't arrive here on this earth for that to be the case.
I'm completely with you. And what about the children? You know, in some occasions, there's an absent parent who is sort of disposed of in some way. What do you see happening there?
It's again, it's a very real event in family court, where for various reasons, often associated with abuse, one parent is essentially removed from the child's life. And that can be removed to then have some sort of fragmented relationship, or that can be removed completely. Now, whilst the court does not do that lightly, and I will come to the defence of the court and say it does not lightly remove a parent from a child's life, but there are occasions where it is necessary. If abuse has taken place, if that child has either been the victim of that abuse or witness to that abuse, then perhaps it is appropriate for a parent to be removed. So be it. It's tragic, but if that is what it is, that's what it is. But the concern for me is this grey area. It's this grey area of parents who possibly have not been the model parent, possibly, but that is not to say that what they have done constitutes enough for them to be removed from this child's life. And what the court does is it lands on this inadequate, in my view, solution, which we call indirect contact, also referred to as letterbox contact. So what the court will say is, well, dad, and unfortunately on lots of occasions it is dad, this court doesn't think that it's appropriate for you to have a direct relationship with your children for whatever reason. But equally so, we don't think you should be completely exorcised from their lives or expunged from their existence. Consequently, we're going to give you indirect contact. So what that means is every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the parameter is, you can write to your children either via letter or via email, your choice, and you can send them gifts, and they will be received. And then the other parent, invariably the mother, unfortunately, that's just how life is, will be encouraged to present that correspondence to those children and encourage them to engage with it and respond to it. And so you essentially, your one parent becomes your pen pal. In all the years I've been doing this, I don't have a single example of that going well. Invariably what happens, and this is just the grim truth, invariably what happens is the parent writes emails, whatever it is they do, and the children never see it because the other parent blocks it. And I get why the other parent blocks it, aside from the spitefulness perhaps of that, but I get why they block it. They block it because it would be a disruption to their children, because it would present more questions than it answers. Because, you know, you receive a letter from dad, and as I say, unfortunately, invariably it is dad. You receive a letter from dad, and if you're 4 years old, 5 years old, and every month or 2 weeks you're getting a letter from dad, that means every month or 2 weeks you're going to say to mum, why don't I see dad? I want to see my dad. Oh, yeah, but you can't see your dad. Yeah, but I want to see him. Yeah, but you can't. And now I'm going to get upset because I can't see my dad. And so parents will make the decision that says, whilst the court tells me that I should present this correspondence to my children, I actually think it's more distressing than it provides by way of benefit. So I'm not going to. Indirect contact. Horrible.
It feels like the humanity is taken out of all of this. You know, whether it's from the parents' point of view or the children's point of view, it's gone for a sort of almost a practical solution that doesn't take into account the emotional effects.
It's very true. The court is applying the law, and there's no parameters in the law for emotion. You know, nowhere in the Children's Act 1989, you know, or the Family Act 1996, or whatever it might be. Nowhere in any of those courts, in those acts of Parliament, does it say, but obviously if somebody gets upset, we'll do this. If somebody's distressed, we'll do that. It just says this will happen. This will happen. And it is devoid of emotion. So unfortunately, the court is devoid of emotion in its decisions. There is emotion during the process, invariably ignored, but there is emotion during the process. But its decisions are entirely without emotion.
So if you saw then, this is a big question. If you saw that we decided to do away with the family courts, what would you like to see?
I'd like to see something that actually reflects what's going on better than the family court. Because I think the problem with the family court, and it's what we've got, so we've got to live with it. The problem with the family court is it's one-dimensional. It is there to apply the law, and it'll apply the law at the expense of all else. And that's fine. That's welcome to the legal system if that's how it is. But when we are dealing with the repackaging of families, which is essentially what we're doing, you know, they're in one form, they've decided that's not working for them, so we've got to repackage it into a new version that allows childhood to still work. You need more elements, more resources in the room than just the law. You need somebody who is considering the emotional agenda. You need somebody who is considering the educational agenda. You need somebody who is considering the feelings of the children and representing the voice of the children. And you probably need the children in the room after a certain age. And so it needs to be much more in the round than it currently is. As I say, I do find it quite one-dimensional, and it needs to be much more in the round and accept the fact that we need more than one set of resources, which is legal eagles like me. You know, we need other people in the room who are going to guide us. So it's more of a collaborative effort to work out how do we dismantle this family in its current form because it's not working, but put it back together in some sort of form where it can continue to work, and where these children, which is ultimately the focus of this, where these children can continue to benefit from, as I've said already, the magic and innocence of childhood that every child deserves. How do we do that? And there is an application of law to that, and there's an application of emotion, and there's some practicality, and there's, how do they get to places, etc. That is more than is currently available.
Yes. You're describing a model that a colleague of mine, Brandon Cares, is part of in America, which is called collaborative divorce.
Yes.
And they have the lawyers come in late on. They have a therapist for any of the children. So each child has a therapist. Each parent has a therapist. And they are in collaboration with each other for the best outcome for the whole family. It's regarded as one family in two households. They have a mediator who helps the adults to take into account all of the children's things, but they mediate to make it fair and equitable with the emotional well-being and the practical well-being at heart as well. And it comes out, and this is where I come in with conscious uncoupling, because the parents learn how their behaviors are affecting each other, where it comes from in their childhoods, how to live and behave differently, have better relationship skills so they can cooperate with their kids and themselves, each other, going forwards. That would be my ideal too. You're mirroring in what you're creating in your mind what I would really advocate for.
No, very much so. And I'm aware of the collaborative process in the US, and it does seem to be incredibly successful where it's applied. Certainly for fulfilling the emotional agenda of everybody, parents and children. So yes, I would be delighted if that mechanism in some form or fashion, arrived on these shores, and we moved away from what is still a bit of a sort of a stuffed shirt scenario that we have in family court, obviously, which has been in place, or the court system in the UK has been in place for a couple hundred years in its current form, and we need to move away from it. It's not working now. It's not working. It's not working on any level. Not on any level. Nobody leaves family court in all the years I've been doing it. Nobody leaves family court and says, "I'm delighted."
Yes, that was a brilliant outcome.
Yeah, that was a wonderful outcome. Isn't that great? Let's all go away and celebrate with tea and cake. That never happens. People leave and still feel, even if they get what could be regarded as a decent outcome, they still feel hard done to. They still feel that they haven't been heard. And it's because the process is not available for them to be fully heard.
No, that's not the purpose of it. No. So in the context of all of this, how can we best support children and protect them?
Goodness me. I feel, and not everybody will share this view, but I feel that children have got to be involved. I'm not suggesting for one moment that we put them into the middle of the courtroom and they battle it out themselves, but I think children need to be kept in the loop where we are going through family proceedings in some child appropriate, age appropriate way. I think this principle that we currently have of children essentially being kept in the dark until we decide to introduce them is fundamentally wrong. They need to understand what is happening in their world, and that the material, that be it printed material or whatever, but the material available to do that is limited. But children need to be, we can't just ignore them and just assume that, we're just going to ignore you for the next 2 years. Then in 2 years' time, we're going to tell you what your life is going to look like. That's just not appropriate. That is just not appropriate. That is not healthy or wholesome for children. They have to be in the loop as we are going along. And as I say, they don't need the gory detail. They don't need the details of the abuse that mum's alleging against dad or dad's alleging against mum. They don't need that. But they do need to know that mum and dad are having some difficulties and that we are using a system that we call the family court, and we're using some people who are experts. He winced. To deal with that for them. But children need to be kept aware, and you protect children by keeping them aware of what is going on.
That's really lovely. Thank you so much. Tell me how people can find you if they want you for their lawyer.
They can. The easiest way to find me is just to go onto social media, or go onto Google, or go onto Chat GPT. I introduce that just because everybody's using it these days. And type in "that family law guy," and I will pop up, apparently. So my team tell me. So yeah, that's where we are. I'd say you'll find me under "that family law guy," and we will continue to do what we do, day in and day out. And we'll continue to do the best we can for children with the resources that are available to us and the system that's available to us.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you as always.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Revolutionise Your Love Life. I'd like to know what has been your biggest takeaway from this conversation. Do take a minute and share this with us, and visit us on our Facebook page. You can connect with me personally on my email at heather@heathergarbett.com. If you can think of someone who will benefit from listening to this podcast, please do share it with them. If you have any feedback on how I can improve it, please do reach out to me, as I'm always keen to learn more. Thank you so much again for listening, and we'll meet again on the next episode of Revolutionise Your Love Life.